This episode is sponsored by Electronic Arts.
Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested.
And Frank from Tested.
So for New York Comic Con, you saw that, Frank, we brought the Messenger Droid costume from EA's Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Yes.
And we showed you guys out there how, Frank, you sculpted the mask and how you made the cut and sew leather costume.
Yep.
But there were some hard parts to this.
Yes, the helmets.
Physically hard and also hard fabrication-wise.
Yeah.
So today we're in your 3D printing and fabrication shop. You're the hum of 3D printers.
All of our little robot minions at work.
To talk about how you made these hard parts. What were the hard parts for this?
It's the actual helmet part and then the hard dome.
So for the lower part of the helmet, what were the ways you could have fabricated this?
Well, you could foam fabricate this stuff pretty easily. There's a lot of reference out there. You could sculpt it and mold it and cast a part. But we were given a lot of really great reference, and so we decided to 3D print it.
And we have your first test 3D print
Yes.
right now. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, so this is the first print out. When I tested this on Gunther's head and with the sculpture, I think it needs to be just a little bit bigger, but that's the beauty of printing, is that we'll just start this print over again and make it like 4% bigger.
Right, which you couldn't do if you already had an existing mold
No, you'd have
and
to-
you cast that. You have to
Yeah,
resculpt
you have
it.
to resculpt it, remold it, re-everything it.
And how long was this print?
This was, I think, about 19 hours. So, you know, a day, like overnight, and then into the next day.
Right, so with your 3D printer here, you get one piece, so you need to put this together, and is basically a work body shop version of this what's going to go in the costume?
Yeah, I'm gonna body shop the piece, and then that's the final piece.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's known quantity.
Yeah.
There's also the dome. So for the dome of this costume, what were the qualities you wanted out of this clear dome?
Well, we wanted a really dark smoked finish, like acrylic dome, that's really thin. And there's pretty much two ways you can go about it. You can either vacuum form this dome, or you could cast the dome. If we were to cast it, we would have to make a mold of a positive and a negative, and then cast acrylic into that, and then polish it. And that's a very time-consuming and pretty tricky process. It yields pretty much the best finished part, but that gets really expensive and really tricky. So we opted for vacuum forming. So you need to have a buck that you draw heated plastic over, and it sucks it down, and then that's your form. Then you just cut it out.
When I think of vacuum forming,
Yeah.
what prop builders or cosplayers do, they're taking styrene or something and melting that. You're getting a pretty good consistent shape, but I've never seen a very good clear dome-like vacuum form part.
It's a little bit tricky because as you heat the stuff, the material in the center starts stretching, and so you're going to get thinner in the middle of the piece than on the edge of the piece. So once you have that difference in thickness, it'll start giving like a weird warped look, and so it's really tricky to get large parts vacuum formed very clear.
And all vacuum forms start with a buck.
Yes.
So let's talk about the buck
Yeah.
for this helmet, which you've printed. Again,
Yes.
3D printed.
So we 3D printed this buck, and now that we're going to be upsizing the helmet a little bit, this is going to be a pretty easy one to just upsize the buck a little bit.
Oh, this looks like a massive print.
Yeah, this was, I think, about 90 hours.
Oh my
And that has to do with the amount of support material inside of it. So what I wanted to do is be able to make this robust enough that I can vacuum form right on top of this print. With just a little bit of body shopping, I think that I can vacuum form right onto this print. If not, I'll do a mold, and then I'll cast up a resin part, and then I'll vacuum form on that. But I think I could do it on this.
Now, in terms of the actual vacuum forming process, what are the qualities of the buck that's going to give you the best results for a clear dome?
Well, you have to have it drafted out good enough so you can get the buck out. So if you don't want to have undercuts that this won't be able to get out of. You also need to have it be like symmetrical and smooth, which is where all of the body shopping and polishing is going to come into play.
And then you're going to smoke the acrylic?
Well, hopefully I'll be able to find some acrylic that's already got the smoked finish, and then I
okay.
can do that. Otherwise, I'll maybe take it over to a window tint place and see if they can get it to tint.
I can't wait to see how this dome turns out, and then putting that mask in there, putting Gunther's head in there.
And then putting some lighting effects, and it'll hopefully look just like a hologram.
All right, next step, finishing this up and making that vacuum form. That is looking really good, Frank.
I think it's pretty rad. I'm excited.
Wow. Again, last time I visited, this was a 3D printed
Yes.
shell. Is that still that same 3D
Yeah,
print?
this is the same 3D print. We printed also. We printed those separate. And then,
Body chopped and painted?
Yep. Chris Hamburger was sitting there and sanding this thing for a day or two
Okay.
and made it nice.
Nice. And then the dome. That's what I want
Yes.
to talk about. We talked about all different ways you could have made a dome, and you settled on vacuum forming.
Yes. Yeah, vacuum forming. This is the same process when we did Iden's helmet from the Inferno Squad before. Make a buck and you heat up the plastic and drop it down and then put on a vacuum. This was a little bit bigger of a form, so we used a bigger vacuum form machine. And I actually sent this out to a buddy of mine that has a machine that's really good at doing like giant, really deep pulls. So I didn't do that in here just because it's kind of a tricky part.
And the considerations you had here were you wanted it to be see-through. You needed to have really clear forms on the
Yeah.
inside, so your buck, you said, had to be really smooth.
Yeah. So we 3D printed the bucks, and then we ended up coating them with XTC, the epoxy that you could coat 3D prints with. And this one came out really nice and glossy, just like leaving the coat on there, and I didn't sand it or anything. It was just real nice and glossy. This one we were getting some like little orange peels and like little funny things, and so we ended up sanding it and wet sanding it, and so it didn't come out quite perfect, but they still came out with the same like beautiful finish on the buck. And we also found that the angle that we had printed this wasn't optimal for making this vacuum form, so we ended up remolding it. We did a brush up mold with like Rebound 40, and then we filled it with a filled urethane. It's like a mineral filled urethane, so it has a really low shrinkage. This is, I think, Smoothcast 380. And that came out with this really nice glossy buck, which we were able to pull these vacuum forms.
I noticed there's also 2 helmets here. What's the deal with that?
Well, when we printed the first helmet, I had a feeling that it might be too small for, once we get the Gunther's head on it and then the mask and then put the lights inside of it, like there just wouldn't be enough room. So because we have the printer and it's like pretty easy to do, we built 2 helmets at the same time, which wasn't like an exponential amount of extra work. It was just pretty quick.
It blows my mind. Like 3 to 4 years ago, you wouldn't even conceive wanting to make 2 just to have one, just in case. That would be really expensive. But you have the tools here, you have the designers here to scale up your models, and you can make 2. And we're ending up going to use the bigger one.
We're going to use the bigger one partially for the extra room it's going to give us. I think in a perfect world, I would want one somewhere in between the 2 sizes.
Yeah.
But we don't have that kind of time.
We're just running up on the deadline.
Yes.
And the final thing is electronics and lighting to
Yes.
create that hologram effect.
Yeah.
Now, what's the solution for that?
Well, I reached out to our own Jeremy Williams, and I said, Jeremy, I need this thing to flicker like it's like a hologram. All right, cool, I'll do that.
All right.
And so he got a little circuit board and some RGB LEDs, and so when you turn it on, it's got that nice little chatter, and it changes its intensity and stuff like that. I think it looks really great.
Right. And so it's about mounting that on the inside. There are also the lights on the side here.
Yeah.
And this is really cool. These are nice diffused panels.
Diffused light panels, and I'm just going to glue those on the inside, and that's just going to give a nice even light on the inside of those panels.
And these are electronics you can just buy online at sites like Adafruit.
Yes.
Very neat. So I'll let you get to putting this inside, and we'll do our final test fit, and then we'll be ready to head to New York Comic Con.